Happy Monday, kings and queens. Welcome back to week 3. Today is going to be something new. I know last week, towards the end of the week, we jumped into testing for 2 days, but now that that's away and under our belts, we're going to jump into our first lesson of Unit 1. So, just to remind us of some of our expectations, we want to make sure that we have our cameras on, our mics are muted, and we're ready to chat whenever necessary. It's time to jump into Unit 1 for the school year. So, what do I need for today's class? Remember, it's important that you are actively participating in order to get classwork credit. So, today we are going to make sure that we're engaged and we're going to use Pear Deck once again. So, for today's class, you will need to participate on Pear Deck. Again, this is how you're going to get classwork credit because Mr. Walker and Mr. Spencer, both of us will be looking at this information in order to give you a grade for today's class. So you can either open another tab on your Chromebook or whatever device you're using. You can use your phone while we're playing this video, or you can use another device if you have one next to you to open up Pear Deck to follow along and collaborate and answer the questions that are necessary. So to join this presentation, you're going to go to joinpd.com and put in the following code, BXKDIC. So once again, you're going to go to joinpd.com and type in the code BXKDIC. Now it's important that you enter using your PGCPS email. So we're going to pause here and take about a minute or two to make sure that you guys can log on to Pear Deck. Hopefully, at this point, all of you guys are into Pear Deck. If for some reason you're having trouble joining, again, that's completely fine, but we want to make sure that you're still engaged. Please make sure that any questions that are being asked that you drop them in the chat when necessary. That way, Mr. Spencer can make note of it to add you to the participation list for today's presentation. So, as promised, today you will need your spiral notebook, your 3 or 5 subject spiral notebook. You will also need a pencil and a highlighter if you have it handy so that we can take notes for a portion of the lesson. So, in your Math 7 spiral notebook, please put today's date, which is September 14th, 2020, at the top of the page and label it page 1 at the bottom of the page. If you've already written in your journal somehow for the past 2 weeks, that's absolutely fine. But whatever page that you're starting on for today, let's just make sure that we're labeling it page 1 because in the future we may make references to certain pages. So again, at the bottom of the page, you want to label it page 1. So for day 1 of this lesson, we're going to start the unit by talking about scaled copies. So let's just take a second to look at this slide. We have an original image, which is the first thing here, of a little boy in a blue shirt. And then we have different figures represented by A, B, C, D, and E. Think to yourself, what do you notice about all of these? Don't share out just yet, but I want you to kind of get your brains going about what is a scaled copy. So, in your journals or in your spiral notebook for page 1, I want you guys to copy down the following. The first thing that you're going to copy down is the standard. Our standard for today is 7G1. And then I also want you to copy down our objective. Our objective says students will solve problems involving scale drawings of geometric figures, including computing actual lengths and areas from a scale drawing, and reproducing a scale drawing at a different scale. I also want us to copy down what's our vocabulary for today. Our vocabulary for today's lesson is going to be scale copy and scales factor. We're going to be talking about mathematical practices 3 and also mathematical practice 7. MP3 says construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So In today's lesson, we're going to have to build an argument and also critique those of our classmates. And then we also want to make sure that we look for and make use of structure. So again, let's take a minute. We're going to pause the video here so that you can copy down the standard, the objective, and our vocabulary for today. All right, now that you've gone ahead and copied down the different things on this slide, we're going to keep moving. If you notice in Pear Deck, it may be asking you to enter a number. We're just going to skip over that and move on to the next portion of this activity in this lesson. So it's time for our engagement. Now, at the beginning of the lesson, I asked you to start thinking about what is a scale copy. Now, some of you may not have any clue what it is, but based off of what you've seen so far from my original slide, what do you think a scaled copy is? It doesn't matter if you have no clue. I just want you to kind of think about what the word scaled means and copies means. And then let's type in an answer of what you may have an idea of what it is that it's going to be. We're going to take about 45 seconds for us to think about what is a scaled copy. Let's make sure that we type our responses in the Pear Deck slide as you guys are following along. And if you are not able to be in the actual Pear Deck, then you can type your responses in the chat. So once again, the question is, what are scaled copies? And at this time, you are typing your response. Let's take about 30 more seconds. So at this time, I would like to hear two of you all share out what your responses are or what you think that your definition of a scaled copy is. Again, we're not necessarily looking for right or wrong answers at this time. We want to be able to just hear what your thoughts are. So we're going to pause the video at this time and ask two of you all to share out your responses. So thank you so much for all of you all that shared. We're going to continue to explore and revisit these definitions as we continue to progress through this lesson. So now we're going to look at a live demonstration and kind of figure out what do we mean by scaled copies. So during this demonstration, take some notes of what you actually see as we explore the differences from our original picture and the images that follow. After I open our exploration and we move through, be prepared to share what you notice. Now, let's look at our demonstration.